thinking about submission, being submitted. I hear that a lot, especially when I was in the church building. You hear teachers teach it, quote it. You hear others teach it, talk about it, and how they approach one another, and especially when it comes to women and how they need to be submitted to their husbands and submission. And I just was thinking about that, and also thinking about the will of God. You hear a lot of that too. Well, it's the will of God. Pray the will of God. It's the will of God that I do this. It's the will of God that this happens. It's the will of God. And I just been thinking about that lately and wanted to share some thoughts on that today. What is the will of God? Is the will of God to obey? Is the will of God to submit? What is the will of God? What really is the will of God? I've just been pondering on those thoughts. Sometimes when I'm in conversation with a few people, they'll say that to me. Oh, it's the will of God, it's the will of God. And I just remember that. I remember how those words were very powerful in the church buildings and the church realm, and submission and all that. And I want to talk a little bit on submitted. I know that word is in the Bible. I don't think about it. I don't use it. I don't apply that to my life even. And if I have to say that, if somebody would ask, well, what does that mean to you? What does the word submit mean to you? I would honestly say it doesn't mean anything to me. And how I describe my life now is that if I had to use that word to describe it to anyone or just talk about it, I would just tell them, out of experience, I've realized that now that I know that I'm accepted and loved by God perfectly, and I know that He loves me and that He accepts me, it's changed my life. It's changed my life. And even in my personal relationships, especially with my husband, it's not that I'm submitted or need to be submitted or have to be submitted to my husband. It's just loving Him and accepting Him, respecting Him as a person, as a man, as a husband. And that's changed our lives in our marriage and everything. So I think that when I think about that word, submit, that can actually be a bad word, especially towards women. Women don't like to hear that. It actually does the opposite, especially when you're approached in a way that you must submit, or a husband says you must submit, or someone says you need to be submissive. It'll actually reverse it. That's my thought on being submitted. I don't submit to anyone. I don't even submit to God. I know that sounds funny. I know a lot of people might say, wow, I really believe that the will of God is not for me to submit. The will of God is for me to know and accept how much I've been forgiven and loved and accepted by Him. And that is the will of God.